how to create the best medical school personal statement introduction that really captures the attention of admissions committee members. Hey, BeMo Nation, thanks so much for watching and welcome to another episode of our One Question podcast. In case you've never watched any of these episodes, the way they work is quite simple. We have 10 minutes to give you our best tips on a hot topic in the world of medical school admissions process. Today's topic is medical school personal statement introductions. In another episode, we went through examples of personal statements that have gotten multiple acceptances. And since then, we've gotten some requests to also create an episode that only discusses the introduction, because the introduction is literally what makes or breaks a really good medical school personal statement example. So in case you haven't watched any of these, my name is Dr. Behrouz Moemeni. I'm the CEO and founder here at BeMo. And the way these episodes work is that during this episode, I'm going to give you our tips, but I only have 10 minutes to do so. So I'm going to start my timer and then we're going to get right into this topic. So here it is. My timer is on and it's counting. What I'm going to do for this episode, though, I'm going to share my screen because I've prepared some slides for you. It's going to be a lot easier to follow. And I'm going to give you our best tips. And then I'm going to give you an example introduction that really stood out. And this student eventually was able to gain multiple acceptances. So with that said, let's go. All right. So let me share my screen here quick. There we go. And let's step back a little bit and discuss the introduction. First of all, as I mentioned to you, the medical school personal statement introduction is literally what can make or break the overall statement. There's a concept in psychology called the primacy effect. The primacy effect indicates, or it has been demonstrated that most normally, again, I'm generalizing here, but that's based on research. Generally, humans are better able to retain the first piece of information in any body of knowledge they consume. So for example, if you're reading a personal statement, you're more likely to remember the introduction and even further, the very first sentence than anything else. And this is why you have to spend even more time writing that fantastic introduction. And the introduction, what does it have to have? Well, it has to be very creative and captivating opening sentence to grab the attention right away. Remember, admissions committees have a few minutes, sometimes less than a minute, to read your statement and decide whether or not you're going to advance to the next stage. And this introduction essentially is your only chance to make a first impression that's hopefully really good. So they want to read the rest. And then again, as I mentioned, take you to the next stage. It also has to serve, the introduction also has to serve as a roadmap for the remainder of the essay or your personal statement. When somebody reads your introduction, they need to know what's about to come and get curious to want to read more. And that closing sentence in their introduction is where you're going to be able to provide a hint to the reader of what's about to come and get them again curious to want to read more. So let's go through an example. So here is a medical school personal statement introduction example that did really well. As I mentioned to you, this person went, they're now in med school, but they were actually able to gain multiple acceptances, which is fantastic because if you get multiple acceptances, you have choice. You get to choose med schools instead of them choosing you, or worse, having regrets because you didn't get into any medical school at all. So let's go through this. I was convinced I was going to grow up to be a professional chef. What? So you see how different this is? Most medical school personal statement examples that you've probably read online start with, hey, I really want to help people. I want to be a medical doctor because. No. This is how you want to start it. Tell your reader a story. And this can be completely unique to you, by the way. You do not have to have any fancy experiences or anything extraordinary. Let's go back to this. I was convinced I was going to grow up to be a professional chef. This was not just another far-fetched idealistic childhood dream that many of us have growing up. There was a sense of certainty about this dream that motivated me to devote countless hours to its practice. It was mostly the wonder that it brought to others and the way they were left in awe after they tried a dish that I recall enjoying the most, creating as a young chef. So far, you don't see any connection with medicine, but that's actually what's getting me curious to want to read more, because it's so different and it's actually engaging. It is also very interesting. So let's keep going. But when at the age of 13, my grandfather was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, I realized that sometimes cooking is not enough, and quickly learned about the vital role physicians play in the life of everyday people like my family and myself. Although my grandfather ended up passing away from his illness, the impact the healthcare system had on him, my family, and myself will always serve as an initial starting point in my fascination with the medical profession. This is just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. It also tells me right off the bat what triggered that motivation. Why medicine, of course, this has to be addressed, but what was the triggering factor? I know exactly what that was with reading just a few sentences already. I want to read more. So let's keep going. Since that time, I've spent my years learning more about the human sciences through my undergraduate studies and research, have developed a deeper understanding of the demands and challenges of the medical profession through my various volunteer and extracurricular experiences. And although it has been difficult along the way, I have continued to forge a more intimate fascination with the medical field that has motivated me to apply to medical school at this juncture in my life. So you see how this introduction literally had everything we talked about and even more. And I also like the fact that this person is not getting distracted trying to tell us everything they've done in their application. It's very clear. We're going to focus on one story. We already started with a very, very powerful story. It very nicely led to that motivation to medicine. Even the introduction even already has told me what this person has done. I almost don't even, if I was a very busy admission officer, I would say, okay, let's move this person to the next stage, interview, whatever it is. Just that if I was very busy and I was just reading introductions, this introduction is one of those that's going to go into the acceptance pile. So what you got to do now is first think about what you're going to write. And you should not. It's a common mistake. People start with the introduction. In fact, you should write the intro after you're done figuring out what this whole personal statement is going to be all about. Write the other paragraphs, maybe start a draft, then come back and figure out how you're going to start. Spend an in proportionate amount of time on the introduction compared to the other sections. Of course, conclusion is also really important, but if you have a fantastic introduction, it's a lot easier to write a body, and it's a lot easier to write a fantastic conclusion. With that said, let's see what the time is. And here we are. So I didn't do too bad. I have a couple of minutes left as well. Thanks so much for watching this episode of our One Question podcast. If you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed it making it for you, go ahead and share it with a friend who may benefit from this as well. If you have any questions for us, include it in the comment section, and hopefully we'll be able to give you some more tips in the upcoming episodes. So if you don't want to miss any of them, make sure you subscribe on whatever social media channel you're watching this, or if you're listening to our podcast, again, make sure you subscribe. Thanks so much for watching or listening to this, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.